Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. So we had a bit of a program shift this evening with the third section. So in the email, I may have communicated that Scott Rutledge with PA Cyber would be doing a presentation this evening. He's actually been repositioned to tomorrow, where he'll be talking about interactive design, and ultimately the videos will be made available to you. But this evening, I actually want to talk about technology, particularly using technology in your marketing and your design work. Some of you may be familiar with these tools, but I think there's a lot of new stuff in here that we could discuss. I do want to acknowledge that this presentation was originally put on by Misha Gerhardt at Redtree. And Misha did such a wonderful job with this presentation last summer that I wanted to sort of resurrect that. And especially for the student audience, I think what is offered here will be really, really beneficial. So should you have any questions while I'm doing this presentation, by all means, please feel free to ask. I've got my eye on the chat on a separate monitor here, and let's get started. So design and technology, using technology in design, using technology in marketing. In some cases, the technology that you are using to solve problems in design are also the same ones that you would use in marketing, and to an even greater extent. And this is one of the sort of core tenets of momentum, is that we're starting to see marketing, communications, and design, three separate disciplines. Excuse me, I have to sneeze. Here it comes. Oh, I'm allergic to marketing or something. Pardon me. We're starting to see three separate disciplines sort of merge together. How many of you are having to do like a marketing piece, but then also having to make a design for it? Or you're having to write that marketing piece and then design for it. So we're seeing this blending of disciplines. And the real world, the agencies, the technology firms, companies in general are making new tools to accommodate this multidisciplinary need. So let's talk a little bit more about the technology that you can use to make your jobs, your needs, your work in the marketing and design spaces more efficient and more effective. And part of this starts with brand discovery, okay? You need to determine what is truly special about your brand, about your end users, your customers, your products. Once you're able to really determine what's special across all of those unique areas of interest, you're going to be able to focus not only on the tools that you want to use, but how to use them. Okay, it's like once you start to understand the bigger picture, a lot of the questions will already be answered before, in some cases, before you even ask them. Okay, so what is so special about your brand? How do you figure out what is special about your brand? And that could be done through a variety of different means, like surveys, discussion groups, focus groups, even social listening, which is the practice of listening to what is happening on social media. What messages are being posted? What is the content of a post or an article that's shared, or a blog, or even something like Instagram? What's the content of the imagery that you're seeing? So there are a wide variety of ways to discover your brand, but the best ways to discover what your brand is going to be through those that you serve, your customers, your clients, your stakeholders. All right. They are going to tell you who they want you to be and how they want you to act and how they want you to talk to them. Okay. And, understand that a brand is just more than a logo. Okay. Wholeheartedly recommend Marty Neumeier's book, The Brand Gap. Please check that out. It is such an incredible read and worth every penny that you may buy on that product, but get it from the library. Okay. But a brand is more than a logo. Okay, your brand is not what you say it is, it's what they say it is. And reaching back to your end users and really listening to them and understanding what they want from you is going to reinforce the ideals of your brand and how ultimately your brand exists to serve your audiences, to serve your customers. Okay, the brand gap was written over 10 years ago, and it does a great job of helping you think about your brand from other people's perspectives. The brand that you service, that you manage, that you are a steward of is something that you may not have objectivity over. Okay, so for me, I'm in higher education. I teach at Pitt, but I also am on the staff side. So I have a lot of sentiment toward the University of Pittsburgh, and I teach at CCAC. I have a lot of sentimental value and with CCAC and other schools that I teach at. And when you have a lot of sentiment, a lot of sentimental investment, you start to lose perspective a little bit. So when you lose that perspective, you start to not communicate as effectively to those that depend on you the most, but also to those that you're looking to attract. So you need to maintain that objectivity. Okay, you need to maintain the distance. And if you keep yourself at a fair distance from the brand that you manage and you're able to look at it objectively, you are going to be able to further innovate for that brand. You're going to be able to discover new ideas, solve problems in even more creative ways. You may find that through doing that, you'll be able to be more expressive, you'll get more resources, you'll get more traction and exposure, and all of a sudden, people are asking you to do even more work, which is very much a tried and true symptom of higher education. If you look busy, you're not busy enough. But the same can certainly hold true to corporate life. And in some cases, in most cases, what people are really seeing is you're moving, you're shaking, you're making progress where there was nothing but stagnation before. You are someone to follow and to watch and observe and learn from. And that all comes back from your willingness to maintain your objectivity when you're managing the brand. Okay. But the other part to this is really thinking about how to put yourself in the mind of your beneficiaries, your stakeholders. What do they think about your brand? Okay, and I'll ask you to drop this in the chat if you're interested. But what is a brand that you can't live without? You absolutely must have. You are a brand champion. You're a brand advocate. You will always buy this brand's products, and it could be anything. It could be something you wear, it could be video games, it could be food you eat. What do you think? What's one brand that you can't live without, folks? Trader Joe's, yep, Apple. Yeah, Maya, I've never had a phone that wasn't an Apple. Skechers, okay, yeah, Skechers. I was looking for shoes this weekend and I stopped by there. Winking Out. I don't know what that is. Is that a beer? Is that like a microbrewery or something? Sounds like it. It's a Aldi's wine. Okay, so hey, I wasn't too far off. Thanks, Ben. So think about those brands that you can't live without, and put yourself in the mind of the people that you're serving, and how do you create that connection, that inability to separate the customer from the brand. And that's really what you want to attempt to get to build. So you have to identify the differentiator. What makes your company different? Who are you competing against? Why should they choose you instead of your competitor? And how can you separate yourself from your competitors? This is all about brand identity and understanding your brand at its most core levels, and then being able to make the same understandings of your competitors. What is so special about Aldi wine that I can't get with one of their competitors? Well, price, availability, actual experience with the product. Okay, there are a number of different conditions there and measures. But what are the differences, and how do you differentiate yourself from that? I often use a phrase called zigging and zagging. So if you work for a company or an organization that is always zagging, they're always making the same choice over and over and over and over again. You, as their competitor, or rather, a competitor may see that you're making the same decisions repeatedly, and they choose to do the opposite. Okay, and it's at that point that they differentiate themselves from everyone else in the space, in the market, and that is going to attract people to that brand because they're choosing to be divergent. And in some cases, divergence also means disruptive. And when you're disruptive, you're loud, you're shaking things up, you're dismantling the status quo, and you are saying, screaming as loud as you possibly can, pay attention to me. What I have to offer you is so completely different and better than everyone else that you can't help but consider it. Okay, so you need to identify that differentiator. And then if you're unsure as to what those differentiators are, do some digging. Look at your competition, try to understand them better than they know themselves. Okay, so you can look through reviews on Google, Facebook. You can see what the social chatter is. You can look at their website for deficits and failures and areas for improvement. In some cases, the best way to understand your competitors is to approach their marketing as if you work for them. Okay, and in the end of the day, you could also just ask. Don't be afraid to reach out to people that work with that company and say, hey, I'm interested in learning more about what you do. And, I'll tell you, I'll information share with as much as you share with me, depending on what level you're at. But it's certainly worth exploring. And like, for example, through organizations like the American Marketing Association, you can actually meet your competitors and have friendly conversations and talk shop in meaningful and productive ways. That helps you identify how you're different from your competitors. Okay, so you also need to understand the journey with your brand. What are your active users doing? What are your buyers doing? All right, your potential buyers. Okay, how are you going to approach these two distinct audiences? Okay, you need to identify the people that you're selling to. What are their pain points? What are they trying to achieve? What problem do they have? What goals are they trying to achieve? Folks, this is fundamental questioning that blanket applies to marketing, design, communications, but these are the underlying questions you need to ask yourself in advance of the technology you're seeking to use. All right, as these answers to these questions will help you determine what software to use. So who are you selling to? What are their pain points? Well, I can't get good wine from Aldi in Pennsylvania. So does that mean I'm going to drive to Youngstown? I'm going to drive to Morgantown to get it? Believe it or not, we've done that. My wife and I have driven to West Virginia. We've driven to Ohio to get Aldi wine. Okay, that communicates. There you go, Ben. Yeah, that communicates so much about your passion for the brand. So an ad I may serve you as, hey, we're sorry that the state of Pennsylvania's liquor laws suck, but I'll tell you what, if you cross the border into Ohio, you drive an hour into Youngstown, this Aldi's is going to make it worth your while. Okay, so my pain point is obvious. And then I have a solution. It's Aldi's responsibility to convince me to get to their store. Okay, so that's just one type of pain point. All brands experience them. I think it was Jolene, you mentioned Skechers. So this weekend I had to buy shoes. I wanted new shoes that were sneakers, but were professional enough that I could wear them at work. While also having a style that was representative of my personality. I drove to Skechers, Old Navy, Dick's Sporting Goods, Foot Locker, Finish Line, and Journeys. And I visited those 6 stores within 2 hours. And keep in mind, I did shopping online too to see what I wanted. And what I determined is that all athletic shoes are ugly as shit. They're just terrible looking, no matter what their functions are. Cheap slip-on shoes cannot be found anywhere. I didn't see them at Target or Old Navy. I didn't stay in Skechers long enough to find them there. So I ended up having to buy, I bought 3 pairs of shoes from Journeys. I bought slip-on Vans, and then I bought 2 Puma shoes. Now, keep in mind, they're the same model of shoe, just in different colors. One was on discount. So I'm also doing some price comparison shopping. So my pain points are no one has what I want except for one store. Now I know next time that I need shoes, I'm just going to go straight to Journey, as that's preferable for me. And still, all athletic shoes are very, very ugly. I won't get over that. As a designer, this bothers me considerably. Okay, so thinking about the journey. All right, think about the journey you want your users to take on your website, in your digital marketing, in your stores. Start with the search engine result page. That's called a SERP, search engine result page. Who are in the top results of Google? Who are they? Are these companies that you've bought from before or have an interest in buying? Pardon me, in buying from? When you look at those, listings in the SERPs, you know, understand that they're also marketing towards you. In most cases, those companies are paying for ads. They're serving them to you. So they're trying to convince you to go with them. All right. How do you want these websites to feel in your purchasing, your shopping journey? All right. Do you want it to be organic and approachable? Or do you want it to be direct and as short of a commitment of time as possible? Amazon, its algorithms try to determine exactly what you want as quickly as possible, so that not only do you have the satisfaction of, oh, I got it, I finally got it, you purchase it quickly, but you also stick around to do a little more shopping because they suggest additional things for you to buy, especially when they pair them and then cut down the total a little bit to entice you to keep shopping. Okay. I want you to think about the also the end users and how you want them to feel. So in one sense, your site is designed to be organic and intuitive, but how do you want them to feel? You want them to feel appreciated, you want them to feel listened to, you want them to have an easy experience. So what are you solving for them? Well, the hassle of having to buy stuff that they probably don't want to buy, but they need. Okay, who really wants to part with their money on things that they begrudgingly need? You know, and you know, what do they need to know about your brand? What is it about your brand that you think that they don't know? And is your brand multifaceted enough to be able to show them new dimensions of your brand's identity, its personality? What is something that you can add to your overall brand messaging, your identity, to push them into converting? So a long time ago, folks started having an issue with Amazon, especially when it became as monolithic as it is. And they're like, we're spending all this money and it's going straight to Amazon, which, you know, that's fine. That's a relationship, but we would like to see Amazon give back more. They're making just an insane amount of money every year. Why can't they give back to the communities that are buying from them? Why can't they give back to nonprofits and small organizations and small businesses? So now, if you've ever heard of Amazon Smile, anytime, you know, it no longer, I think they shuttered it, it no longer exists, but for a period of time, you could go to Amazon Smile, buy the things you wanted from Amazon, and a portion of the profits would go to a nonprofit that you would support. So that's something that you can add to entice people to purchasing things or being converted into a sale. And then how do you want people to contact you? You want them to feel like it is not a barrier. You want to be as accessible as possible. Okay, surveys, social media. Anytime you buy something that you're not happy with, a lot of people go to social media to complain, and that's their right to do so. More often than not, though, if you contact the support lines, they'll be able to resolve your issue relatively quickly, especially if they're a large company. If it's a smaller business, however, they may be slower to respond, but ideally will give you a better offer or give you more enticement to spend more money with them. Okay, so if you're unsure of the journey, do some digging. Take a look at the demographics. What is the average age? What is the spending behavior? Where's the location? Demographics, geographics, psychographics, and behavior tracking. Okay. Where are they located? Geographics. Where are they located? Relative to the retail outlets, competitors. What are their behaviors when they're online? What are they searching for? How do they use your website? So on and so forth. Okay. So take a look at those things. And then you can also be sending user feedback survey every couple of months, or at the end of every purchase. You can ask people to respond anonymously. And then also look at the current audience. A lot of companies see fairly core static audiences that don't really change all that much over time. Sometimes they're getting audiences that are continuing to evolve every quarter of the year. In some cases, like there are brand new audiences being created. So NFTs, for example. I know a lot of designers that are all on board the NFT train, and that's good for them. But NFTs weren't really a thing. And then when they hit, all of a sudden these new audiences they manifested, they came to the fore. And now a lot of people are making a lot of money off of pixels. So there's always a new audience to be discovered, or an existing audience that you can find new ways to communicate with. So let's talk about tech. And this is the tech that you want to use before you truly build your strategies, your overarching execution of the work that you're doing. Okay, so we talked about the user journey. One of the best tools to use for that user journey is a tool called Miro. Okay, and if you take a look at the screenshot on the right, Miro is essentially a design thinking tool that will help you map your brainstorming, your ideas. It will help you develop user journey mapping, or building what is called a marketing funnel. Okay, it'll help you build a sitemap, or help you determine your website navigation architecture, the hierarchy of your pages. It will also help you build flowcharts, which represent user behavior, purchasing behavior. And these are just visual tools that you can use to communicate ideas. Now, one thing I do want to share is, and it speaks to a little bit of cynicism that I have, is that I generally believe that no one will believe anything that you say unless you show them. Okay. And what I believe this means is that, Sophia, I can describe something to you that I want to make. And how it looks in my head is going to be incredibly different from how it looks in your head, despite the fact that I was very articulate and specific. There's no way to get that one-to-one, okay? So I need to express my ideas visually in order for you to best understand them. When all minds are clear and things have been made plain, you will create the opportunity for one-to-one understanding and relatability. When I don't have to explain something, that's when I know you got it. Okay. So with that being said, show them what you're thinking. Okay, Miro is an excellent tool because it allows people, multiple people, to join one board. So you can actually move those sticky notes around simultaneously amongst various users. It's a tool that you can share with your supervisors, with internship supervisors, with your peers, your colleagues, fellow students, and they too can manipulate these things. Excellent. Another tool similar to it is called Mural, which is one that I use, and I actually use it for all of these reasons, but I also use it to build wireframes for websites. Again, I don't want people to have to imagine what's in my head, and when I make a mock-up of it, or a very clear interpretation of it, then my pitch is easier, to the point where it's not even a pitch. I already hooked you. I already sold it. You just don't know it yet. Logic forms or logic jump. So let's say you decide to send out a user form, a survey, to try and understand your users. Okay. You need a good survey building tool that will allow you to incorporate logic into it. So for example, if you ask through a survey, are you a cat or a dog person? And you choose cat. You may get a conditional response that says, well, here's a list of cats. Please choose one that you really like. And then you answer that, and then you get another conditional response that says, tell us about a time when you saw this cat eating cat food. Okay, and then maybe you mention that, and so on and so forth. You understand the logic breakdown. But it gives surveys an opportunity to be unique and be a bit more personalized and specific. Nothing is worse when you have to fill out a general form and it takes you like 15 minutes. People don't have the bandwidth or the cognitive load to really want to do that, let alone get through it. And when they can't get through it, that's called fatigue. So all surveys have what's called a fatigue score. So if the fatigue score is high, then you're pretty much guaranteeing that your end users will not finish the form and you will not get the information that you need. So when you create logic jumps in your forms, you're going to be able to craft a better experience for them that enables them, empowers them to invest more of their time in your survey, because you're actually asking questions that resonate with them. Tools like Jotform, SurveyMonkey, and Qualtrics all have logic built into them. Okay, so another tool I want to share is called Canva and Figma. I'm pretty sure a lot of you understand what Figma is. I'm sorry, not Figma, Canva. Figma is a prototyping tool that was actually just bought by Adobe. So designers out there, you've got yet another tool that you're going to have to learn. In fact, I don't know if it will be absorbed into Adobe XD, but there's a high likelihood of that. They'll just strip out the best features and incorporate that into XD. Nevertheless, coming back to my earlier point about marketers becoming designers, designers becoming marketers, this is really where that's happening. So for my trained graphic designers in the room, don't look at Canva as your enemy. It is a friend. It is a benefit. It creates benefit for you. And as time moves on, Canva is going to get more complicated with respect to its functionality, meaning it's going to have more functionality. It's going to be more innovative, to the point where maybe someday you're essentially doing Photoshop in a browser. Okay, so use Canva and tools like it to your advantage to create whatever type of content that you want, be it print media, social, in some cases logos. Okay, measure twice, cut once. Do the research, do the design, make sure everything that you're designing is on point, is valid and valuable and approvable, and you will have more success here. Figma is a really great tool for prototyping. Let's say you're making a website or a user interface for a mobile app. this is going to let you build those wireframes really, really quickly. And when I say to people that all web design starts on paper, they generally don't believe me. But if you look at the image on the far right, that's essentially a wireframe. All websites start on paper, boxes and pen lines. Take it from there, go into Figma, start to build it out a little bit. Once you get that, you can use Canva to make supplemental graphics to really augment the interface. And these are relatively affordable, if not at times free tools. Hey, guess what, everyone? Canva has an educational account. Get yours while you have that .edu, okay? And it's a very robust edu account, okay? And they're easy to get. Anyone can get them, staff, students, faculty. Take advantage of opportunities like that. Integrations. So, it stands to reason that Canva and Salesforce or Qualtrics or Canva and QR codes, software is becoming more integrative across the entire spectrum. Okay, so you really need to be looking for where the integrations are starting to occur in software and technology. Okay, and incorporating those integrations into your problem-solving process, your workflow. Okay. There are tools called Make and Zapier that automate a lot of workflows. So for example, I may say to Siri, add an event to my calendar, and I go through the process of adding that event to my calendar, but I have a Zapier appliance plugged into my iCal that anytime I create a new event, it will then create that same event on my Google Calendar, or it will automatically email my assistant. And this is work that I don't have to do. It's all automated. So the operative phrase here is work smarter, not harder. And if you've had me for class, then you know how much I say that. Work smarter, not harder. Lean into the tools that you're using, okay, and want to use, and incorporate those into your workflow and cut down on so much time you may be wasting every day doing trivial things that you don't have to. So let's talk about building, and this is the fun stuff, okay? If you have a strong grasp on the technologies that are available to you, then you're going to be able to build for them in not only a more efficient way, but a more enjoyable way. And for me, at the end of the day, I really want to enjoy the work that I do. I enjoy marketing, I enjoy design, I enjoy learning new things. And both disciplines are always going to be about learning new things. So you have to be a lifelong learner, but the operative word here is you have to be curious, okay? Curious with the tools that are available to you, and then curious enough to learn how to use them so completely that when you start building, you're unstoppable. There is nothing you can't make. I get really annoyed when I'm talking to like a senior graphic design student and they say, yeah, I've had 3 years of software training, but I don't know how to do that. Okay, we'll figure it out. You're going to be entering the field soon where the phrase "I don't know" is not necessarily going to be appreciated, especially if you're an entry-level person that in some cases is understood to know the latest and greatest software. Okay, so really invest your time in yourself in learning a lot of these tools, and then not only will you have a more deeper and broad knowledge of these technologies, but you'll have fun making things in them. And the more fun you have in your job, the more energy you'll put into it. The more energy you put into it, the more return you will get. Okay, the more success that you will see. So here are some tools that I'd recommend for website design. Now, when it comes to website design, I'm going to just kind of take a step back here. I started designing websites in 1996. 95, 96. And when I started, I actually learned how to make websites in Microsoft Publisher, of all things. Microsoft Publisher would be able to export code, but then I had to learn how to code in order to get those things online, okay? So I had to interpret logic and code to create a visual layout. Okay. And as time moved on, technology kept improving like every 6 months. New tools would come out to the point where, you know, there was a period of time where I was increasing my code knowledge because the tools require deep code knowledge. But then there was a switch, and this happened right around the 2008, 2009 economic collapse. And essentially, people were getting laid off left and right, no matter what your industry or discipline or experience level. And companies decided, well, we need to start looking at designers that can do marketing. We need to start looking at marketers that can do design. We need the mythical, beautiful, majestic unicorn that can solve all of our problems. And unfortunately, that mythical creature does not exist, but you can get as close to it as you possibly can. It is the impossible utopia that you can continue to reach for, but never get to. And what's important there is that the journey is the destination. The need to keep grasping for that, reaching for that, always building your skills to become that unicorn is, in my opinion, the best approach. But it's not for everybody. And that too is also okay. You can specialize in like one specific thing. Nevertheless, as from that point, designers were beginning to be expected to learn how to do a little bit of everything. And designers aren't necessarily built that way. And the same thing with marketers. So in order to adapt, both marketers and designers had to learn new skills outside of their interests and comfort areas. Simultaneous to that, companies were starting to create software that made it easier for marketers and designers to create things. And that's where you get this acronym from, WYSIWYG. Now, WYSIWYG's been around for a very long time, but it stands for what you see is what you get, meaning whatever I design is exactly how I want it to look. And that's why tools like Squarespace and Wix are starting to be more dominant in the web design industry, okay? But the other tool, WordPress, has been around for a very long time. It has like 40% market share, which means most of the websites on the internet are based in WordPress. It's a WYSIWYG tool, and the additions to it keep getting bigger and better and more amazing. I only design websites in WordPress anymore. That's where the most equity is. That's where the most value is. But that for me is also fun because there's a lot of challenge there. If I use Squarespace and Wix, yeah, I'll have a nice looking design. But what did I learn from it? Very little, because the software did the work for me. Now, WordPress now has adaptations built into it that gives you that WYSIWYG functionality, especially from third-party tools like Elementor and Divi. But some of you may have an interest in web design, but don't know where to start. And at the end of the day, if you know how to code, that's great, but you can make the most beautifully coded website and it could still look like hot garbage. And all that proves is that you know how to code, because if you have an ugly interface, people are not going to want to use what you've made. So you need to make sure that you have great code and great design. Squarespace and Wix, they handle the code for you. You don't have to worry about it, which lets you focus on great design. Okay, so if you take a look at the pros and cons of each, they're pretty obvious. So, with Squarespace, you get a variety of pre-built themes to get you started. What you see is what you get. So you're designing with intent, a one-to-one expectation of whatever you're designing, it will look like. There are cons to that, though. Some limitation on how to present content, limitation on themes, limited integrations, limited functionality. One of the things that sucks the most is when you have a client that says, I want you to use Squarespace to design my website. Oh, and also now that that's up and running, I want my website to do this, 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 and this. And then you have to go back to them and say, well, you're using Squarespace. It can't do those things. At which point they have to start looking at another service like WordPress, which is much more robust in terms of its functionality. okay? So if you take a look at WordPress, you got millions of themes, great flexibility with integrations, with seemingly everything, amazing SEO performance, but you need to develop new skills for that. You need to use a lot of plugins, which are applets that you plug into your site that enhance its functionality. And there are updates constantly, which is actually a good thing, because that means that the software is being policed for contemporary technology standards, but it can be really oppressive at times. So if you look at the middleman, and I wouldn't even consider Wix to be a middleman, I would actually consider it to be a step well below Squarespace. Wix, they don't have a variety of themes necessarily. What you see is what you get. They have a scheduling feature, which, ooh, big deal. There's limited presentation on content, limited integrations, limited functionality, yet somehow they have no problem charging you like 20 bucks a month. Oh, that's the other thing. Price. Squarespace costs money monthly. Wix costs money monthly. WordPress.com can cost you monthly, but WordPress.org is free. All right. I won't belabor the differences between those, but free speaks volumes, especially when WordPress is free and it has the most robust functionality, better performance, more flexibility, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Those opportunities outweigh the updates that you would see every day. So focusing on e-commerce, some of you may build an e-commerce website, want to sell things online. WordPress is great for that. I've built e-commerce sites on WordPress, but you have to deal with the integrations, the plugins, and it's a lot. On the other hand, you've got Shopify, which is really an all-in-one, out-of-the-box solution. It's an amazing tool. It's quite frankly the best solution for e-commerce. Simple to use, loads fast. The user experience for the checkout process is optimized. It doesn't allow for a lot of content creation, and there's less customization and scalability. You rely on a lot of third-party apps, but focus on the goal. Your goal is not to entertain necessarily. Your goal is to make money, transactions, one right after the next. You want people to check out your products, to add them to the cart, to buy them, and to enjoy that experience so much that they repeat it the next day and the day after that. Okay, so that's a basic primer on some of the technologies in design specifically. And again, like I could get into some of the marketing technology that you may use, but the thing is, there are literally like a million different applications. Every single company is different. There is some conformity and consistency. There's a through line from company to company, but it's not always that simple. Okay. And the other thing that I wanted to talk about was AI. So if you take a look at the link I just dropped in the chat, this goes to what's called a swipe file. And this swipe file includes a list of AI tools relative to the things that you may be interested in, like copywriting, digital media content, search engine optimization, design, creating landing pages. Some of these are free, some of these are paid, okay? But there are an amazing amount of tools out there. Is anyone using AI at the moment? Or explored it only to mess around with? Maya, what are you looking at? What tools? Well, as you answer that, I'm going to put in a another link. Okay, so ChatGPT, using that as a search engine rather than Googling things. Okay, that's interesting. I would not actually recommend relying exclusively on ChatGPT as a search engine, because its database only goes up to 2021. So you're going to be finding outdated things. But it's good that you're using that in that sense, because it is very robust in terms of its need. And just like the other day, my wife used ChatGPT to build a meal schedule, breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the entire week. And we asked it to consider the specific diets of myself, my wife, and my daughter, and it spit out some really interesting recommendations, good recommendations, nevertheless. But I just dropped a link in the chat. It's called Built with AI. And, you know, when it comes to proving your, you know, your I don't want to say your reputation, but your knowledge, your potential, one of the things that you have to do is stay on top of what's out there. This Built with AI website is actually a newsletter, and every day they send you new AI tools delivered right to your email. And I've discovered just hundreds of tools that could improve the work that I'm doing. Now, unfortunately, there are very few that are free, or maybe they're freemium. There are conditions applied to that, but it's incredible to see all of the innovation that's happening. So I used a few of those tools, and ChatGPT. Actually, I'll just describe the process. So I'm doing a student storytelling project right now. It's called The Explorers. And I use ChatGPT to automatically write the stories of these fictional students that were all named after superheroes. Okay. So ChatGPT wrote that prototype content for me. And then I used another tool and it took all that content, put it in this other tool that then applied human voice to it. And it was conversational voice. So it sounded similar to how I'm speaking to you now. It didn't feel as robotic, okay? And I was then able to save that as an audio file and then put it in another service called Transistor, which is a podcast hosting service. And now I've got like a little mini audio news feed that can be downloaded as a podcast. But on the website, I also have that audio embedded so that it appeals to screen reader accessibility, those with visual impairments. But even the casual user can just listen to the story. There are also tools that will automatically generate video based on text that you feed into it. So you could say, please make me a video that shows multiple cuts of students engaging with one another in a computer lab. Okay, great. And it would show me different versions of that. So, you know, you're entering into the industry, or maybe you've been in the industry at a time when we are seeing rapid and fundamental changes to how we do work. And your goal needs to be to get in on the ground floor of that and understand as much of it as possible. And here's why. The more you know, the better your salary is going to be, the better your marketability, the more you become a critical linchpin to the organization or organizations that you serve. I saw a job posting the other day for an AI content engineer, which basically means this is a person that really understands how to get the most and best content out of AI tools. The salary is like $300,000. Insane. And all they do is they write prompts, and then whatever the prompts generate, sends it on over to the marketing team, they sort it out. But the expectation is that those prompt engineers know how to get the absolute best content out of any AI tool, most particularly ChatGPT, but I see that expanding into other tools. So with that being said, are there any questions? Any thoughts or points of concern? I will add as a final point that if you are concerned that you will lose your job to AI, I don't think you should be concerned, so long as you do the work to learn the most about AI. And I've often heard this, and it bears repeating. Marketers that know AI will profit, will succeed. Marketers that refuse to learn it they're the ones that will be compromised. They are the ones that will not get work, that will lose their jobs. And that's capitalism, simply put. So a word to the wise, get on board this train, learn about it as much as possible, and become a practitioner in these tools, and you will see a lot of success for yourself. Okay, so that's the conclusion of my presentation, and I welcome your thoughts. Otherwise, you know, we can go ahead and conclude this session for the evening, and I will see you all next week for the practicum, where we will be discussing all of these topics and how to apply your learnings to an organization called the PA Humanities. If you go to pahumanities.org, I'll type this in the chat. They are, again, a nonprofit organization that receives a lot of state and federal funding to create transformative humanities-based impact in communities, excuse me, throughout the entirety of Pennsylvania. So I'm really looking forward to discussing that with you, as well as with Emily Bizak, who will be moderating the practicum for the marketing track, and Rich Helfrich, who will be moderating the practicum for the design track. Okay. Thank you again for your attention this evening. It was really great to see all of you, and I hope you got a lot out of the content. Have a wonderful evening.